I think it surprises people that really at every level you're looking at communities of people who don't all agree with each other. And people assume that, all the 1% think the same thing, or all the
No, that's
intelligence
absolutely not true.
community think
Right.
the same thing.
Exactly.
And it's not true at all. That there'll be
That's right.
disagreement at every level, some who want more disclosure, some who want less. And so we see the
Absolutely.
push and pull of that conversation all the time.
Right.
So
This
let
is
me
not,
ask
we're
you.
not dealing with a monolithic community. We never have been. It doesn't work like that.
Exactly. Now, on the basis of what you've seen, you've been following this closely, what technology do you think the program does have access to? If Eric Davis won't tell us, what do you reckon? Entire craft, functional craft?
I believe they have entire craft. Yes, absolutely. That was mentioned in the Davis notes with Wilson. We have heard this many times. You go into the UFO lore, the crash retrieval lore, which I love to do that. They're fascinating stories, and we've had these accounts for many years. So, for example, we were told that in 1948 in Aztec, New Mexico, a virtually intact craft came down. Similarly, in 1953 in Kingman, Arizona, that craft was, by what we were able to gather, virtually intact as well. There probably have been some others. So, yes, I think that we have a few, more than one intact craft. Now, how far have they gotten? Would you read Davis's notes from his interview with Wilson? Wilson apparently was told by the gatekeepers, as he called them, that they had this craft and they were really struggling to understand it. They were really struggling to replicate it. They were going at a snail's pace, essentially, is what they said to him. That could be true. That could be false. Wilson's only repeating to Davis what he was told. I think Wilson was telling Davis the truth, but the question is, were the contractors telling Wilson the whole truth? We don't know. How far have they gone? There are a number of interesting stories in the lore of the UFO subject. One of them is the 1988 ARV story, the Alien Reproduction Vehicle story. We don't have to go into all the details here, but it's interesting, and I think that I've believed that one for a number of years. That also talked about intact craft that we studied and also were attempting to replicate, and perhaps have made some progress with that. I think that's entirely possible. I spoke with one of my favorite people in the UFO field, Jim Goodall, who's former U.S. military and a definitely badass, tough dude who knows his aviation like very few people out there. He was the first private individual, I think, to see the stealth fighter in flight, who was hanging out outside in Nevada. Anyway, Jim believes that we've absolutely got the ability to go across the galaxy. Do we? I don't know. But I don't dismiss people like Jim, and I do wonder if we've got something really radically advanced. My suspicion is that you talk about the metamaterial that has been known now for a little while. So that's a breakthrough in material science. That's an object, an artifact said to be from the 1940s in a crash retrieval, known to exist definitely since the 1990s when it was sent to Art Bell, and is incredibly advanced by what we've heard. I listened to a long lecture by Hal Puthoff about this. And I think it's been manufactured at the nano level, possibly the angstrom level. That's unbelievably small. And I don't think that we have the capability. I've been trying to understand this. I think it is still beyond our capability to fabricate to this day. But in material science, that's a real key to the UFO tech, because it's been speculated that it is in the material itself that a big part of the propulsion actually happens. That the material acts as a kind of what's called a wave guide, so that it can don't think that I'm understanding what I'm about to say here, but that it can that light hits it and it slows down the speed of light, thereby changing the equations that would allow you to create a space-time bubble around the craft, so that you don't need all the infinite amount of energy in the universe to create a space-time bubble that would allow you essentially to do an end run around the speed of light. You create a bubble on your craft. The material allows you to essentially change the equations that make it, I think as physicist Jack Sarfati quipped, maybe a AAA battery is all you need to get that effect. Whatever it is, it might not be out of our capability to do something like that, but you need advances in material science. And I suspect that is a key to the scientific exploration of these exotic craft. Undoubtedly, there's much more going on there. You think about biological and machine interfaces. This is something that we've wondered about for a long time. There are alleged photographs from Roswell. They could be spurious, but showing imprints of hands into the, where your hand imprint would go into the craft. Presumably that would allow you to interface with the craft. And then there's even in Philip Corso's infamous book, The Day After Roswell, which I think has some real gems in there and truth in there. He talked about a headband that they studied that seemed to allow the extraterrestrials to communicate either with each other or with their ship. So there's a lot of technology, presumably, that we would want to study.
This sounds incredibly far out, creating space-time bubbles, craft that are directed by the minds of the pilots. But it does marry with the testimony of defense personnel who've had to engage with UAPs. They talk about UAPs pinging into our airspace, which implies a space-time bubble, that kind of technology. And then they describe how the craft move, and they say they move almost like they were a creature, like they were an animal, which again suggests that the mind of the pilot is very intimately connected with the mechanics of the craft itself. So I find a lot of credibility in that language. Anyone who watches Star Trek, anyone who watches Star Trek would recognize that. Oh, well, tell me what you picked up there.
Yes, because I'm really glad we're doing this. You frequently get descriptions of these craft, and the descriptions that they fly sometimes almost like insects. They're not insects, clearly they're not, but they will move in ways that you would not expect a craft that's run by, say, an algorithm to operate. You would expect some of these to be, sometimes they're incredibly steady in the sky, but sometimes they're not. And I wonder now if that is a complete, the reason for that is a biological machine interface. And that might cause a certain amount of instability. I don't know. Or just maybe more of a, I don't want to say whimsical, that's probably not the right word, but something along those lines where it wouldn't be as mathematically precise. And maybe a biological connection explains that. That's very interesting.
Thanks for watching this short video clip from our main YouTube channel, The Fifth Kind. Click here to watch the full video.